Hey guys, welcome back. It's Josh with the Financial Advisor Car Guy. This week we're going to talk a little bit about the climate that you may or may not live in and store your car in. The reason that this topic is relevant to me this week is we just got back from a long weekend. My wife had a birthday, and so for her birthday we went to the Oregon coast. While we were there driving around, we did some shopping, we went to the beach, the weather was raining, it was overcast, lots of different things. And I happened to notice just driving around and stopping and parking in different parking lots, there's not a lot of cars that are maybe pre-2000. Most of the cars are, I would say, newer than 20 years old. Now we're in 2026, right? It's the end of January, early February 2026. So even a car from 2000 is 25 or 26 years old now, which is crazy to think, right? It feels like it was just 2009. I don't know. It's crazy to me that was 25 plus years ago. But all that to say, cars on the coast in more salty air, humid climates, they just don't last. So a lot of the cars from the 80s and 90s and older, of course, have likely, unless they've undergone some extensive restoration, have likely rotted themselves out to nothing. It's not unusual to be driving down Highway 101, down the Oregon coast, and you'll see in yards and areas of different junkyards and things like that, rotted out, rusted old cars where the paint is literally falling off, body panels literally falling off, rust literally eating holes in these panels. Rust is harsh, man. Like sea salt and stuff like that in the air, it is harsh. So to me, if I were to live on the coast, if I even vacation on the coast more than a couple of days, the very first thing I do when I get home, I wash the car, right? You got to get all that salt off. You got to get that nasty air, nasty water, the buildup and everything off your paint ASAP. Because if you don't, right, it's going to start penetrating through the clear coat, into the paint, down to the metal. And it is like a corrosion that you can't stop, right? So you've got to be proactive in keeping your car clean. So back to the point, right? We're driving around. I'm noticing lots of newer-ish cars. Not new, not a ton of brand new cars. I wouldn't suggest that the area on the coast that we were at was like a high upscale area. It's not like a ton of money there, right? There's people buy new cars every day, but my point is, I'm not seeing only 2025s and 6s driving down the road. We're definitely seeing lots of, early 2000s, 2010s, 15s, whatever else. And I think just the life cycle of a vehicle there on the coast is such that you buy it and then you just replace it. People just get tired of dealing with or chasing the problems of corrosion. And it can get into your wiring harnesses. Moisture's just in the air, right? For example, the Airbnb that we were in, and you open the bathroom door after it's been closed for a while, and it just smells so humid and musty in there, almost like a moldy smell. Not suggesting there was mold in that house, because if you open the door and air it out, or you take a shower and then open the door, it airs itself out to a point where it doesn't smell that way. But if you keep it enclosed and tight, and if we closed the bathroom door in the morning, we're gone all day and came back after dinner, if that door had been closed for 10 or 12 hours, yeah, it smells really musty in there. And so imagine under the hood of your car, or the interior of your car, or inside your trunk, or any place that can capture moisture. If you're not airing it out regularly, that moisture is going to build up. Humidity and all the things are going to just wreck your vehicle. So I don't know, not that I wouldn't necessarily want to live on the coast, but what do you do to combat that, right? So funny enough, a few years ago now, we went to the coast for the 4th of July, and we went with some friends, and we rented a beautiful Airbnb overlooking the ocean. It was great. Well, on the weekend, I think the 4th was like a Friday. I want to say the next day, Saturday, a little coastal community, small town, definitely sub 10,000, probably sub 5,000 people. They had a little local car show, and I was shocked to see a bunch of the cars that were there. Lots of 50s and 60s cars. I don't know if they came from further inland or what, or how they're storing them. Maybe there's some like fancy antique car museum with indoor storage. I don't know. But But I was absolutely floored at not just the quantity of cars, but the quality of cars, considering the fact that there's so much rust and corrosion over there. Personally, I mean, my Mustang, like, it's right behind you. Literally, my camera phone is resting on the tire or against the tire. The car right here, I don't drive it often. Literally, it sits in the garage under a cover. I uncover it in the spring when car show season starts up. I drive it somewhat rarely, not even somewhat, very rarely. To and from car shows is really the extent of the driving. And I'll drive it for the weekend while I have it down and out and around. But getting it off the lift is kind of a chore. I don't have a huge shop, so it's not like I can just move my R8 out of the way to get the Mustang down. It has to be a conscious effort. I have to move the R8. Generally, I'm moving it like out of the alley, out onto the street. I park it and get the Mustang down, and then whatever, I move the stuff around. It's not just like super easy. All that to say, I don't even live in a wet climate. I live in a very dry climate. Central Oregon is incredibly dry, and it's unusual for us to have any humidity at all. If it is, it's so little, it would never impact anything. So it's not like there's moisture stuck under my car cover or, or moisture, inside the interior, under the engine bay, and the trunk lid, like I said, under the trunk. None of that. There's just no humidity, no really good chance for mold, mildew, corrosion, rust, any of those things to really start. We do have some pretty harsh temperature swings, though. In the winter, it's not unheard of to be sub-zero, right? We get down to -4, 5, 6, 7 occasionally. And in the summer months, we can get up over 100, 105, 108, whatever it is. So we do have some wide variety of temperature changes, but it's still a very dry cold and a very dry heat. We don't have very much humidity. And so it's not a problem here. Having classic cars, this is a great place for classic cars. And you don't even have to go to the exceptional, lengths of, they sell online those airtight bubbles. You probably have seen them. And if you haven't, just Google it real quick. It's a really fascinating thing. But they're truly like car covers that are inflatable bubbles that you park your car in, and you hit the button, it inflates, and it keeps it completely dry, completely humid free. It keeps all the moisture out. Imagine your Christmas decor. Your neighbors might have an inflatable snow globe or something like that. It's that type of like PVC plastic material. You literally lay it on your garage floor, drive onto it, fold it over, zip it up, turn a button on it, inflates with air. It's really kind of neat. And I mean, I've seen them at car shows, or not car shows, but like, I don't know, trade shows types of things. There was a vendor down at Hot August Nights that did it. They probably sell them at SEMA and these kind of other big car conventions and shows and things like that. And so anyway, that's one way you could live in a very humid environment and still keep your car nice. It's a lot of work, and you've got to have the space, right? Again, you can't just put it up on a lift with one of those bubbles around it. It just takes up too much space. So I don't know. It's kind of fascinating. For me, a person who likes classic cars, I like to be able to work on them. I have to leave them outside occasionally. I wouldn't want to live in a very humid, wet, damp area for that reason alone. Everything's dirty and muddy and gross. And so you're driving through mud constantly, driving through sand, and sand gets everywhere, right? I do not want sand in the interior of my Mustang or in my R8 for that matter. Do I get sand in the truck? Sure. And it vacuums up and whatever. But when you get granules of sand in there, it is never, ever, ever 1000% out. It's going to get into the carpet and it's going to be there forever. And whatever, it's fine. In my truck, even in the Mach-E, I don't care so much. The Mustang and the R8, I would never want sand in there. I wouldn't want to expose it to that. And so, you just kind of have to pick and choose your battles. I would tell you that living on the coast is probably really, really great for a lot of reasons. But as a car guy, I prefer a dry climate. And I guess that's really the point of all this is, would I take these cars to the coast? Probably not. I would stay in my dry climate, in my temperature controlled garage, and these cars would be fine. They could live another 100 years in here. I could never fire it up again, the Mustang, right? I could never fire it up again, and probably wouldn't have any more rust on it than it does today. And most of the rust has been cut out. Now, this car lived in Puerto Rico, so talk about moisture, talk about humidity. The floorboards were essentially shot, and to some degree they still kind of are. I replaced pretty much every body panel that needed to. Every rusty spot on this car has been remedied with the exception of the floor pan, and it was patched. There's some patch panels in there. It doesn't look pretty from the underside of the car. In fact, I can kind of look at one section of it right now. And I do wish before I was totally done with the interior, I had just spent the money and done the floor pan. I didn't have the money at the time. It was lots of years ago. And floor pans aren't cheap, you know, and then the labor on top of that. And then you always run the risk of it not fitting right or the car not being totally square or whatever, right? I mean, things go haywire all the time. And so patch panels were what the previous owner had done, and they were sturdy and solid enough. Now, they didn't do a great job. They basically just welded a panel over the rusty floor. So what I did was I treated the rusty floor underneath the pan from the underside. It's not gotten any worse. It's been fine. It's completely fine. Doesn't look super attractive. So if you put a mirror under my truck, or under my car, or if you look at it from under the lift, not the most attractive undercarriage. I should probably bedline over that really to seal it in. It is painted black. I did use a black Rust-Oleum to encapsulate and coat everything under there. Again, it's not gotten worse. So I count that as a victory. But if I lived on the coast, that would have to be fixed immediately because it would attract moisture to each nook and cranny, right? Those crevices. Like I said, the old panel was just welded on top of the new patch panel was just welded in on top of the original rusted out floor. So I'm not sure. I mean, I got in there as far as I could all the way around the hole and whatnot to really clean it up and capture what was in there and seal it. I don't know how well a job, I did. So if this thing sat on a grassy, wet field, which is common on the coast, right? Grass, and you're just parking on wet surfaces, just the moisture getting up under the car into those crevices and nooks and crannies and everything, yeah, my floor would probably be way worse off than it is sitting up on my list. So anyway, that's all I got for you guys. I don't know, what are your thoughts? What do you think of the coast, right? Would you ever have a classic car there? Would you ever try to restore a car there? Maybe that's a big business. Maybe you don't even have to restore a car that's very old. Someone with a 90s Toyota Corolla, maybe, Maybe they just got a rusty trunk lid and a hood, right? I don't know. Or if it's the right kind of car, you could always swap off panels and do carbon fiber or fiberglass replacements. Also an option. So possibilities are endless, but it was just something that I'd never really contemplated, never really put myself in that space before. Obviously, we vacation at the coast regularly, so it's not something I've never thought of, but it's never something I really put myself in the mindset to really digest and think through. So again, that's all I got for you guys. Let me know in the comments though, what your thoughts are. Have you ever experienced that? Have you ever worked on a rusty car and decided it wasn't worth it? Let me know. Thanks so much for watching. I hope everybody is liking, subscribing, sharing all this stuff. Some of these episodes are way more in depth than others, but I do appreciate the watches and I do appreciate the likes and the comments. So thank you guys very much. Most importantly, remember, may every investment you make be a good one. Till next time.